Regular meeting is reconvened. Ms. Evans, are there individuals who wish to address the board during today's meeting?
Yes, there are people who have registered to provide public comment, and I will review the rules. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to address the board, and I will keep track of time. We will be strictly following the time limits so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. It is the practice of the board not to respond to comments during the public participation portion of the meeting. We will maintain an atmosphere of respect for all people. A person disrespecting anyone by name or otherwise will be asked to cease. Public participation will occur in person and virtually. We will begin public participation with the persons that are physically in the room with us today and then move to those in the queue online. First in the room is Bonnie Wood. Hi. Hello. Go ahead and have a seat, and whenever you're ready, your 3 minutes can begin.
I kind of found out I should have been at a different meeting earlier this morning than here now, but I think it's fitting here. My name is Bonnie Wood, and I'm from Ovid, Altsea. I'm a retired educator, 31 years of health, physical education, and home and family living. I have some concerns that came up, and I'm sorry I didn't see you last month, and it has to do with the reading program and Congress and et cetera getting on this concerns here about teaching foundational things and calling right. There's right and there's wrong. There's absolutes and there's not absolutes. Okay? In education, we're to teach the truth, the knowledge, and what's appropriate. And I'm hearing in this reading, many kids cannot read in our schools. So if they can't read, it's hard for them to discern what is truth too. And I just think we need to focus more on this reading and get that in place. The villainizing truth, when we're teaching truth and training a child up in the moral, the truth, the knowledge, and denying the outline, which is in a Michigan Constitution. We're supposed to be, I thought, what it said in the Constitution is the appropriate guidelines, religious morality and knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and means of education shall forever be encouraged. And that's in the Michigan Constitution. And I've come here before talking about that. Let's get back to the basics. And some of the woke stuff that's going is taking us out this way. You can't please everybody, but you can please what is definite on the building blocks of teaching what the body does and et cetera, of how to take care of it, respect one another, and all the other stuff that's out there. That's in the homes and et cetera. I understand those who are in counseling and et cetera. It's a hard thing. In the school district, it says every school district shall provide for the education of its pupils without discrimination as to religion, creed, race, color, and national origins. Now, when I was growing up, it was pretty clear what was pretty definite, that I was a human. I was a male. I'm not a male, I'm a female. And all this other. So I'm just saying, let us get back to basics, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, next person in the room is Catherine Geel. All right. And whenever you're comfortable, 3 minutes can begin.
Hi, my name is Catherine Yell. I represent We the County Macomb. Andrew Jackson said that the Bible is the rock on which our republic rests. Franklin Roosevelt said it is necessary for the welfare of the nation that men's lives be based on the principles of the Bible and that no man, educated or uneducated, can afford to be ignorant of the Bible. For the first 150 years of our great country's existence, this was not only understood but practiced. The Bible and Christianity were present in our public schools. Children understood there is a God and a higher power to whom they are accountable. However, as our country became more diverse, challenges to this arose. Some people decided that the First Amendment, although it clearly states only that there shall be no law respecting the establishment of religion, that there should be a complete separation of church and state. We went along with it, and God, the Bible, and with the morality and values were removed. Today, however, those same people who scream for there to be a separation of church and state have introduced their own religion into our public school classrooms. Those that claim to want the Bible and God out have brought their own biblical gods in, picking and choosing which biblical gods, small g, are okay to be worshipped. Take Ishtar, for example, mentioned over 30 times in the Bible. Ishtar was a god associated with war, love, marriage, sex. Ishtar's cult practiced sacred prostitution. Women waited at temples to have sex with strangers in return for a divine blessing. The Bible speaks of Ishtar's relationship with the sky and her influence on weather and climate. Ishtar was also associated with fertility and sex. Her followers often redefined traditional gender roles and engaged in homosexuality. Ishtar is also associated with the pursuit of revenge, confusion, and violence. Molech, who is mentioned throughout the Old Testament, a particularly disturbing practice of Molech worship was infant or child sacrifice. Families allowed children to pass through the fire, be burned alive to Molech to secure favor and prosperity. 2 Kings chapter 17 says, "And they abandoned all the commandments of the Lord their God and made for themselves metal images of 2 calves, and they made an Asherah and worshipped all the hosts of heaven and served Baal." Baal, another biblical god, worshippers of Baal stole, murdered, committed adultery, swore falsely, and made idols and altars for which to worship him. You say you want religion kept out of schools, but what you mean is you want Christianity kept out of schools. Make no mistake, the LGBTQ plus pride agenda is religion. It worships gods. Only those gods represent transgenderism, homosexuality, confusion, abortion, climate change, adultery, and idol worship. On May 9th, you passed a resolution to honor this religion for 2 months out of the year, plus March 32nd and a day of silence in April to recognize bullying of transgender students. Are you serious? According to your own statistics, 52% of Michigan third graders can't even read. But let's take a day off of education to recognize bullying of transgender students, when in reality, the only students being bullied and harassed are those that worship God and not the LGBTQ plus agenda. Where is the resolution dedicating a month to other religions? Why is there no separation of church and state when you are forcing children to worship your idols and flags that represent your gods?
Thank you so much.
And one of our other representatives is going to finish that for us.
Yes. Stacy Van Oost.
Most all of it.
Is she getting me a copy?
All right, and whenever you're ready, you may begin.
All right, thank you. I'm Stacy Van Oost, and continuing for Katie for Weeda County, Macomb. This religion does not belong in schools. And make no mistake, this is a religion. It's a demonic religion, but a religion nonetheless. Your religion teaches that the way they were born was a mistake and that it is a choice to become something else, and it even if they choose. My religion teaches children that everything God creates is wonderful and they are his creation and so wonderfully made that in God's eyes they are a wonderful and beautiful creation. It's Psalms 139, 13 and 14. Your religion teaches children that life has no intrinsic value and can be destroyed if it inconveniences them. My religion teaches children that every life is precious and not to be harmed. Your religion teaches children to wave a false idol decorated like a rainbow. My religion teaches children that the rainbow is a symbol of God's everlasting love and his covenant with his people on earth. Get your religion out of our schools and away from our children, or allow our religion back in so children have a fighting chance against this evil. If you plan on going forward with this disgusting resolution, as it has already passed, to celebrate your gods, I expect there to be an additional resolution to honor our God. If pride flags honoring your gods are allowed in every classroom, then a crucifix honoring our God should be allowed to hang in every classroom. If you truly believe in the separation of church and state, you will reverse this resolution immediately and call for an end to any and all pride celebrations and any and all instructions regarding the LGBTQ agenda. It's about time we get back to educating children and stop indoctrinating them. So thank you on behalf of We the County Macomb. For myself, Stacy Van Oost, I just have a basic problem with the whole resolution as passed, in that I don't like to see any group of people elevated. I believe that all men are created equal, and when you elevate certain groups over other groups, it almost makes more people want to join that group or something, and maybe causes more confusion. So I just think common sense, I'm against bullying of anybody, and so that's my problem with the resolution, is it just targets a single group and gives them special days and whatever. It's not so much about the group as common sense and focus on education and protecting all of our kids all of the time when they're in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is Gwen Allen.
Good afternoon.
Whenever you're ready.
How is everybody today? Awesome. My name is Gwen Allen, and I reside in Macomb County. I'm concerned today about the bad books that are in the schools. I have been attending the school board meetings, and I am appalled of what I have been heard and what has been read. I'm very also concerned how upon yourselves and what's been infiltrated into the schools, that our children are being groomed for such, all the way up to kindergarten and on up. So I am asking to decide that you would decide that you would, take a look and see on the other side what has been said, and other speakers have been said. Why don't we push? It's time to remember about America. It's Thomas Jefferson's education. Why aren't we pushing anything like this? Our forefathers, founding fathers, had made it explicit that from the beginning, they appealed to heaven and became unified and started and compiled a constitution for us to follow by. So I thank you, and it's short and sweet. This is my first time, but I wanted to get the thing across and how I feel. And the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the preamble, this is what we should be pushing. This is what our children need to know. Our forefathers, our past presidents, they don't know that now. And I just like to encourage this kind of teaching, this kind of textbook applying to our schools instead of pushing the agenda of what's been going on. You're very well much aware of the MCLs, about the education, and how it can be a crime pushing these kind of books into our school systems. Thank you so much, and giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next is Julie Nicoit. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
All right. And whenever you're ready.
It's worse. Okay. Let me get
Whenever you're ready.
All right. My name is Julie Niewhite, and I am from Clinton Township. I have 5 children, one who is a teacher right now. He teaches math at a very diverse school district in Macomb County. He tells me regularly that in his teaching, he notices that his foreign students are very much engaged in their academics and their education. They at home are told and held responsible to learn. You all as educators have a very huge job to educate our children. In the book of Hosea 4:6, it says, "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge." We all need knowledge. We are in a very competitive world system right now. And without knowledge, we are not going to be competitive out in the marketplace. I sat and listened to some of the people that you had speaking earlier. I am a licensed electrician. I went to high school. I went to trade school. I got my license in Connecticut. I got my license here in Michigan. I worked in the field and learned a lot about things like that. Kids need opportunities to do other things besides go to college. You have a very large responsibility. Why don't we get back to academics, teaching them what is necessary, not all this clubs and social stuff? They have time at home to do all of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next is Sue Milligan.
My name's Sue Milligan. I'm from Macomb County. Just get to it. Legislation and laws are in place to protect the LGBTQ plus students and faculty in Michigan. As I read your resolution in support of this legislation, it was when I got to the further resolved actions that your agenda became clear. It was the fourth further resolved section that states that the board shall recognize October as LGBTQ plus History Month, June is Pride Month, March 31st is International Transgender Day of Visibility, and a day of silence held on a Friday in April each year. Then there is the fifth further resolution, which supports that employees should have the academic freedom to discuss this resolution during class time, and that students are to be made aware that district counselors can discuss the subjects contained in the resolution with them. And we know that Proposal 3 allows them to do this without parent permission. These are the resolutions that infringe on the rights of those students and families that are uncomfortable and whose upbringing does not align in any way with the LGBTQ plus agenda. For you to adopt 2 months plus 2 extra days of an academic school year and more time if a teacher sees fit to discuss a sexual agenda is a blatant attack on all children's ability to learn the basic skills they need to be critical thinkers. Children should learn and be educated on morals, values, and social issues by their parents and families at home. Schools are responsible for teaching skills of reading, writing, and math, and an accurate history of the state and country so children can grow to be competitive in the world and use these skills coupled with the values they learn at home to be critical thinking individuals, unafraid to debate and question ideas that don't align with their ideas, and then to tolerate those they disagree with in a respectful way. You have resolved to go from being tolerant to accepting and now to celebrating an ideology that is far from being aligned with the majority of Michiganders and Americans. You have gone from live and let live to live and give me power to go after your children, and you better agree with how we live or we will accuse you of a hate crime and intimidate your children into agreeing with us as well. Discipline, consistent attendance, and the value of learning to read, write, calculate mathematics, and understand the accurate history of our country is the resolution we need to adopt for our schools. Pride in our nation is the only pride that should be encouraged in schools. The majority of parents in Michigan are not aware of this nefarious resolution that you have passed, but it has become a mission for many to make it known. Something I know you are more interested in than children being indoctrinated into a Maoist agenda to eliminate family values and gender is getting reelected. It is a mission of not just a few who are represented here to make this agenda known and to make sure those who voted for this are not elected again. And if you want to talk about bullying and threats, there are 360 million Christians worldwide living in fear of being persecuted. 8 per day are being martyred. June 29th is International Day of the Christian Martyr. That might be a resolution to educate others. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Julie Bartholomew.
And Christina Klaber, we're here together. Is that okay? I don't know. Is that all right to talk together?
Yes. Oh. You come to the table together. Yep, it would be 3 minutes for the two of you.
For the two of us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And whenever you're ready.
Okay. We are here to bring some exciting news. I am Julie Bartholomew. I'm a physician and an inventor. And this is Christina Klaber. I'm a school nurse at Caseville Public Schools. I work for Shore Hospital. And we just launched a pilot for mental health in Caseville Public School, and our statistics, our data is extraordinary. And then we'll tell you a little bit about the program. First, Christina's going to share.
So my clinic visits last year was 654 visits for May and June. And then this year for May and June was 409. So that's 245 less visits to the clinic for headaches and different things of those.
For a 30-day pilot.
For a 30-day
We did a 30-day pilot.
And then behavioral offenses from April through May this year for grades 6 through 12 decreased by 42.7%, and kindergarten through 5th grade were decreased by 27.5%.
Okay. And what we launched five minutes in the morning and 5 minutes before they left school, K through 12. It is a mental wellness initiative. It's science-backed. There are 7 components to it. It starts off with laughing. We activate the brain in different ways so that we can take a dysregulated nervous system and calm down that body. And so we start with a laugh. We move into a trauma-informed practice where they're looking at a beautiful animal or flower. They ground. Then they move into a breath work practice. And then we take them somewhere in Michigan visually and somewhere around the world. And they just let go. So they go focus, then they're releasing, and then they hear positive affirmations, positive things, and then statements about being compassionate and kind. We did that in the morning, and in the afternoon, we did a let go and release. We did it for students and teachers, 260 participants. Everybody across the board felt calmer. We've had teachers tell us about looking at their tracker watches that their heart rate has gone down. We have students that have asked us to keep it going over the summer, teachers begging us to do that. It's simple. They just listen to it. They plug it in their ears and they turn it on. It's 5 minutes. There's something to learn. The secret sauce is in it. It doesn't take away from the teachers. And we've had extraordinary results. And I know we only have a few more seconds. We wanted to share that with you because we're so thrilled, and it's in a rural community. And we're very passionate about it and would love to share more if anybody's interested. It's been extraordinary. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next in the room is Gwen Bliss.
My name is Gwen Bliss. I'm from Livingston County. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I do have a teaching background in special education. From Central Michigan University, I've been a resident of Michigan from the birth on up. I have worked in a volunteer capacity for over 20 years as a leader and also as a director of a youth program. And I've also served as a precinct delegate about 4 years ago. However, I feel very unprepared for this meeting because I did not know about this until about 9 o'clock this morning. And as a teacher, I would never go before a class unprepared. So this isn't my best, but it is very important to me. And so I felt it worth my time to be here. The reason that I'm here is during the time that I served as a precinct delegate, some of my neighbors had asked me about a concern that they had, and I had told them as a precinct delegate, I didn't know what I was doing, but I needed to know what upset them, what were their concerns. The bad stuff takes care of itself. What are the things that you want me to bring up if I have an opportunity? And overwhelmingly at that particular time, it had to do with education. Specifically, a friend of mine from the Linden School District had an open school board meeting because some of the parents were very concerned about the content that the teachers were using in the classroom with their children. During the board meeting, they had described some of the actual material because it was difficult for the parents to understand and the staff what is the real concern. And so they read some excerpts from a book. I don't remember the title of the book. I would have been prepared. It had the word kite in it. But the description that was of concern to the parents had to do with 2 7-year-old children that were sodomized. They were abducted and sodomized, and it went on to describe in great detail feces and blood running down their legs. The blank expression of the children as they watched each other be victimized. That's just one example. And then when the parents had asked, why would you be exposing our children to this, the overwhelming response that they received was to make them more compassionate toward kids that were victims of sex trafficking. And in my opinion, as a teacher and as an adult, that is something that it should be left up to the professionals that deal with counseling for people that go through trauma, not for minors. Another neighbor had come to me in the Heartland School District. Her daughter was very concerned about a book that she had to read for a group project. It was called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It contained graphic sexual as well as violent scenes, and her daughter had fallen into anxiety as well as depression and wished that she could kill herself. When she went to the the teacher said, go to the school board. So they went to the school board, and the school board said she had the choice to opt out. However, the child was given that as a group project.
Thank you so much for your time. Okay, next is John Kraus.
Got some prompts here, so.
Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Good. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having this opportunity. My name is John Kraus. I reside in Kent County. I've been a lifelong educator, going into my 30th year, mostly as a high school administrator, CT principal, director of instruction. And I'm here on behalf of a group of schools called the MAVEN Consortium of Schools, 5 public school districts that have banded together to find a digital solution to better engage students and to help them navigate into careers along with their parents and families in a more equitable way. The schools that I support, really, we believe that this aligns to Governor Whitmer's 60 by 30 in terms of looking at how do we show the relevance of degrees and credentials into the workplace so that students will start applying themselves earlier and not drop out as we see too often, especially in underserved communities. We also believe it supports the Board of Education's Top 10 plan. The problem we're solving is we really need to significantly increase that number of students and adults who feel eligible and competent enough to move into the jobs that are in the Michigan economy. Things like CAD, 3D printing, laser cutting, data analytics, Internet of Things, computer coding, and cybersecurity. We also recognize that our teachers, while very strong in their academic preparation, don't have the transference of knowledge into these industries, and how can we bring that to them? So through a digital solution we're building with a partner who's building it for free, we have the opportunity to work students through a progression of digital technologies, one of which is called Grow Main Street, where we have 5th through 8th graders across the state who are designing 3D cars and assembling them and learning about EV, as well as construction and designing buildings and cities, fashion and apparel, looking at shoes, and also building Internet of Things kits for temperature sensors, heart rate monitors, water quality sensors, and motion detectors as it relates to the energy industry. We've been very fortunate to work with partners like Michigan State, where they were part of a USDA grant for $10 million and have written these schools into that grant to look at how we can use this technology to better educate students about their food supply and mitigate against food shocks. And I'm very excited in July, just in less than a month, we'll be going to Washington, D.C. with Ravenna Public Schools, who's representing Michigan as one of 5 schools in the country for the Rural Tech Project under the U.S. Department of Education, and presenting these outcomes where they've had 162 students build these sensors. They've had 300 and some students in middle school design and build these shoes. We're really focused on moving into generative AI and looking at how we can use that to better create tools for teachers and counselors to take things off their workload to make it more enjoyable in teaching and make it more personalized for students. So we're partnering with MySTEM, in terms of we just received one of their P3 grants. We've appreciated the 98C dollars because that's what funded this for those schools in the consortium. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I can leave these if you're taking these paper for the record, or not.
Sure, that's fine. Next up is Sandra Novotny.
Hi, my name is Sandra Novotny, and I'm from Oakland County. I'm a mother and a grandmother. And to me, this is an outright attack on our family, on our children. This is a child abuse as far as I'm concerned. Anyone with eyes can see there is male and female. If you are confused, look at nature. Gender identity has taken over our schools, trans, non-binary, and if you don't address them and their correct pronouns, which is they and them, you are a bigot or a homophobic. Just because you feel something, it doesn't make it true. When you teach about George Washington, you don't teach he had sex with his wife. You teach what he did as the president. Children are loved and nurtured, raised by their parents, not the state. Congress should not be misled. Treating students and parents with dignity and respect means allowing them to live according to their own beliefs in sexual matters. Codifying LGBT ideology into a civil right would take away fundamental freedoms from those who don't conform. That's not equality, it's injustice. The school's job is to educate them, not to indoctrinate and cause confusion. In Luke 17:2, it says, "It would be better for you to have a millstone hung around your neck and be thrown into the sea than to cause one of these little ones to stumble." I thank you for the time to speak. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, last in the room is Bree Mogenberg.
Hello, good afternoon. Bree Mogenberg from Isabella County, Moms for Liberty. Don't be scared. I know we've been labeled as a hate group. I promise you I don't hate. And if you do have feelings of hate, there's definitely counseling services that you can probably tap into that will help you work through those feelings, because I should not be hated and I should not be called hateful because I have parental rights that I want to exercise. I'm here to talk about the freedom to read resolution that you have though. So moving forward, according to a psychologist from Psychology Today, fiction allows the reader to exit our identities and mentally step into different ones. Fiction is an invitation to put aside identities and enter a space where we can simulate different ways of being that is transformational. Then, by exploring other minds, we are giving the opportunity to practice experiencing different emotions, thoughts, and behaviors than what we would otherwise live. Books that invite children to explore sex. Books that encourage them to grow sexually as they are encouraged to simulate different sexual identities and practice experiencing different sexual emotions, thoughts, and behaviors are disgusting and filthy. Quite literally perverted, and not within the scope of morality, religion, and knowledge that our Constitution speaks of. The resolution as presented is infringing not just on the health and safety of my child, but also the constitutional and lawful right as a parent to direct the education of my child. So I am curious, when you created this Freedom to Read resolution, did you ask yourself these three questions? Number one, can it morally be put on display? And let me explain that. If you take the book Genderqueer, where there's a picture of a male with his penis exposed and another person and their mouth going on it, is that morally correct to sit that at the front of the library when kids walk in? Number two, would permission be granted to have students watch a movie of it? So to put this into effect, let's take the book A Court of Mist and Fury on page 53, and let's imagine, let's visualize this, quote, "Release tore through my body and he pounded into me hard and fast, drawing out my pleasure until I felt and saw and smelled the bond between us." Do you think we can get a permission slip for students to watch that in a movie? And my third question, is it safe? Studies show that pornography leads to the same brain activity as alcoholism or drug abuse. So if you support and pass this resolution with the freedom to read with sexual books, why don't we also support resolutions that encourage kids to use drugs and alcohol? And heck, why not have 2 months of the year where we have drug and alcohol flags that we promote in the schools? Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the people that are in the queue online. Caller, can you hear me?
I can.
If you could please state your name and where you're calling from, and then you can provide your 3 minutes of public comment.
My name is Sheree Anderson. I stay and reside in Harper Woods, Michigan. I'm actually in the office today, but I'm on the phone. And I would just like to know about parental rights when it comes to children in foster care, even as a delinquent. What educational rights do they have? And can they be assured to have parents' rights when it comes to a voice of education, especially if their child is special needs, as well as special education? Because of COVID, my child's son's psychiatrist passed away, and forms wasn't being able to be filled out properly. Is there alternative of getting these forms filled out? So IP or 504 plans, Title I, can still be implemented for that child, as well as Black history being continuously taught through all districts, and not just for the month of February, but implemented all year round, as if it's not just something that should just be taught once a year, and as if we are all part of society, as well as just to piggyback, and as I heard the young lady speak about certain things, we were once morally taught sexual education, not about what gender it was or anything, or how to implement sexual intercourse, but those sexual health classes were taught to prevent STDs, not demonstrate different positioning, and no matter what any youth desires to like or entertain as adults, we are overseers over our children. And at some point, what is mature levels of implementing sexual behavior? When do we become a society that didn't teach moral integrity of having marriage first? And no matter what they like, it is deplorable if it is being taught in visual stimulation on how to position certain things and implement certain things without them having the knowledge of knowing who they really are and their own identity first. Because all of us have had a stage where we felt pretty ugly. We didn't know who we were or what we liked. Yet it wasn't influence to make any decisions until we were wise enough to make so ourselves. And I just will hope that these things are not implemented in our schools to teach anything else, but to have high morals and standards of integrity and to love all equally, but more importantly, to be wise in the decision making that they are making, to be independent, mature, and not have sexual orientation at a very immature age, and then have all these radical emotions behind it.
Thank you very much for your public comment today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, caller, can you hear me?
Yes.
When you're ready, please state your name and where you're calling from, and you can begin your 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Katie McFarland, and I'm a parent in the Troy School District. I'm calling to oppose the Free to Read resolution that the majority of the members on this board will, of course, pass as a way to justify age-inappropriate sexual content being accessible to minors. One such example is the book Genderqueer, which was recently discovered in the Troy High School library, in addition to other school libraries across the state. This book contains a graphic image of two women, one wearing a strap-on dildo and the other performing oral sex. Many of you on this board seem to think that kids need to see themselves in books through these sexual images in order to feel included. Exposing minors to pornography is abusive and criminal. The true practice of inclusion involves inviting someone to sit with you at lunch or inviting that person to hang out after school. Many people in the LGBTQ community are horrified by this abusive agenda being pushed on our most vulnerable population, minor-aged children. Not all of them agree. Stop putting them in a box, and I highly recommend you check out the Gays Against Groomers group. You could really learn something from them. Please stop preying on kids and let them have an actual education free from your radical sexual agenda. The law trumps this meaningless resolution, and all you are doing is further exposing yourselves when you vote yes on this today. Tom and Nikki, as always, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
involves inviting someone to sit with you at lunch.
Hello, caller, can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Hi, can I ask that you mute the YouTube behind you, please? Thank you. Whenever you're ready, state your name, where you're calling from, and you can begin your 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Madeline Thomas, and I'm calling from Livingston, Michigan.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just was reading the resolution, Freedom to Read. I also went over excerpts from the books that were suggested in Freedom to Read. And these books, parents have a duty and a right to protect their children from explicit, traumatizing literature. And these books definitely are. Stories can be told without getting into explicit sexual behavior ad nauseum. Please do not teach our children or let our children use any of these obnoxious books. This is sexualizing and grooming our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, caller, can you hear me?
I can.
Whenever you're ready, state your name, where you're calling from, and you can begin your 3 minutes of public comment.
Thank you so much. My name is Dennis Quell, and I am a resident of Midland, Michigan. I thank you for this opportunity to speak and appreciate your time. I oppose any and all resolutions, including the ones that have just passed, or propositions that would in any way allow for students of any age access to literature, books, media of any kind, and computer access that would have sexual explicit content or gender identity material. This would also include any teaching and special education offered on LGBTQ. Anything to do with sexuality, including gender identity, is best addressed by parents and should never be allowed to happen in school, certainly not without prior consent from a parent. Recently reviewing published research on adverse effects and outcomes that occur when children are exposed to this type of material is very disconcerting. This research, published research, confirms that literature and media exposure to these materials has similar effects as watching pornography. These outcomes range from early pregnancies, STDs, STIs, increase in picking riskier partners, depression, mental health outcomes that are bad, sexual abuse, and others that we should actually not want to occur and or be a part of. These outcomes affect their lives both in health and emotional well-being while being a child in school and carry on into adulthood. I worked in healthcare for over 40 years. The best way to avoid the occurrence of any unwanted disorder or disease is to refrain from any aspect that is known to contribute to it or to be linked to it. There's no difference with this scenario. If we want to avoid the deleterious effects that this can have on our children, we remove these materials. I would hope that your goal is the same, to have the best interests in mind for our children. There are best interests, not others that have other interests that want to promote this. Also, as an FYI, during the last election cycle, I knocked on over 1,500 doors, and one of the items that everyone had in common, whether they were Republican or Democrat or independent, was that they did not want this scenario to occur in the public schools and were very upset about hearing about these things that were happening. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Hello, caller, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. If you'll please state your name, where you're calling from, and then you can begin your 3 minutes of public comment.
Okay, thank you for taking my call. My name is Liz Neely from Grand Rapids. I disapprove of Michigan's K-12 social studies standard as it outlines biased content used to indoctrinate political and racial views onto groups of people to influence political outcomes and institutions large and small. I strongly oppose House Bill 4569, voter pre-registration that would require Michigan Department of Education to coordinate with Michigan Secretary of State to solicit voter registration to those age 16 in public schools. I'm also concerned with the appropriation of school funding among districts. On June 6th, the Education Committee met in the Senate to discuss the need to reform policy within Detroit public schools to allow for increased pay based on merit for new teachers hired post-2019. The current pay restriction is limited to DPS, new hires, and is hurting the quality of education for students within that district and only worsens recruitment efforts for new good quality teachers. Senator Ruth Johnson explained the pay scale for teachers statewide has remained flat the past 2 years, whereas administration pay, including superintendents, has increased at a rapid rate, and there is a need to flatten the curve statewide. Senator Johnson explained $42 million sent to one school district went to an offshore account and doesn't believe it to be recovered. Oversight is needed to ensure state money sent to districts is allocated appropriately and delivered to teachers and students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, caller, thank you. If you could state your name and where you're calling from, and then you can begin your 3 minutes of public comment.
Hi, this is Victory Woodall, and I'm from Berrien County down in Southwest Michigan. I was calling in regarding the Freedom to Read resolution. I have some concerns about that, major concerns about that. It seems very, very tone deaf, given the news coverage and just the thousands of parents in Michigan that are up in arms about smut books that are in our public school libraries. Basically, the issue at hand is not banning books. The issue at hand is age-appropriate restrictions on media that our children are consuming. You have to remember that unlike a public library, a public school library's exclusive audience is minor children, with a few exceptions. You know, we have some that, turn 18 before they graduate high school, so they're technically adults before they leave high school. But as, by and large, the exclusive audience is minors. So we have to keep that in mind. One thing that was cited in the resolution was a poll that was done in 2022 that said 70% of Michigan parents oppose book banning. That is actually false, and that poll is very flawed because there were only 800 people polled, and there are 8 million voters, just voters in Michigan. There's 8 million, there's 10 million residents of Michigan. So that was a very small section of people that were polled via cell phone, by the way. And that question that they asked was actually about public libraries. Again, not public school libraries. So you have to consider what question was asked in that poll when you are looking at that 70%. So that's very misleading to cite that in this resolution. By and large, parents do not support children having access to pornographic material. And again, we are not talking about banning books. We are talking about age-appropriate restrictions on media that the exclusive audience of minors could possibly be consuming. If you want to know why Michigan public schools population has declined so much in the last 2 years, just look at all this wokeness that's happening in these schools. We have gone from some form of moral standard to no morals, no safeguards, nothing at all to protect our children, and it keeps getting worse. Parents are choosing to take their children to private and parochial schools, and they are choosing to homeschool kids, even though it's a very tough stretch on their family economically, because the public schools are going in this terrible direction. And we can't stand for this anymore. I ask you to not vote for this Freedom to Read resolution. I think if you want to put the nail in the coffin of Michigan public schools, go ahead and stay on this path. But otherwise, I ask you to please vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, caller. Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for the opportunity to go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you could state your name and where you're calling from, and then you can begin your 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Sean Hill. I'm calling for St. Joseph, Michigan. And just want to call in on this freedom to read resolution. I do believe in education for our kids, but I do believe that our kids need to be just taught the basic math, reading, English, science, and the history of our country. And to be able to allow them to read any of these books that are inappropriate for their age, I'm talking like to just allow them to be in any schools to any age is irresponsible. I mean, has anybody ever thought that that maybe some of the problems in our world is because of what we're allowing some of these kids to see in our schools and don't do anything about it? My thing is, is there's an age appropriate, there's appropriate age for each reading of each book. And we should leave it at that, not to the younger kids in our community. These are our kids. We pay you guys just to educate them in the math, science, and English and history. My goodness. Why are we doing this to our kids, allowing them to read the smut? I guess I'm turning it around and I'm going to ask the board, why are we so insistent on teaching our kids about pornography at such a young age? I understand we have the cell phones, they have access to cell phones, and there's crazy things that happen on cell phones, but this is a school. And you come back, you say, oh, you're all for banning books. No, I'm not for banning books. The thing of it is the school is inappropriate for some of these books. I've seen some of these books that you guys want to allow in these schools, and they're just crazy. We're not banning books. We're not Nazis. We've been called Nazis before. What I mean by not banning books is they are allowed in our current public libraries. Allow them in the current public libraries. And if the parents want to buy these books, they sell them in the stores. So how is that banning books? Let the parents buy the kids the books. Let the parents do the parenting. Teachers and educators take care of it, just educating our kids. We don't need personal agendas allowed in our schools. For crying out loud, we can allow every other flag in our schools these days. What about the American flag? I mean, there's some schools that don't even have the American flags up in the schools anymore, for crying out loud. Let's teach our kids about what our country is all about, the history, the true history of why people fought for our freedoms. But you know what? Let's protect the kids, though, too. Don't allow them to get off track here. Like I said, a lot of this problems in our society is probably because of what we've exposed them to as young kids. Let's protect them, educate them the right way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, caller, if you could state your name and where you're calling from, and then you can begin your 3 minutes of comment.
Sheila from Macomb. John 14:5-7. Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Caller, can I interrupt for a second, please? Can you state your last name, please?
Oh, Sheila Seed. I don't have to state my last name.
S-E-E?
Okay.
C. It's just letters.
C. Sheila Seed. Yep. Thank you. All right. I'm proud of all the parents and grandparents who have given public comment. Way to protect your children. Way to go. Just when I think the majority of this board can't go any further into the depths of discrimination, you prove me wrong once again. Money and the ESG scores is the driver of these policies, which have nothing to do with academics whatsoever. While my son was in the public school, I learned a lot about the public schools. The most enlightening thing I learned is that you can opt your child out of the state testing. If you years from a superintendent is if the majority of the parents opt out, the schools lose the funding. Oh, my goodness, that sounds like a Bud Light moment or a Target moment for the public schools. Parents, you want to make a real change and a difference in the public schools, opt your children out of the state testing. The testing does absolutely nothing for your children, and the only thing they do is bring money to the schools. They don't use the data to make any type of change for your child. I should know. I dealt with that for my son. Another opt-out is for sexual content. The Great Schools Initiative is a great group who is actually helping parents get the sexual content away from the kids. Go, parents, go to greatschoolsinitiative.org and get connected to get your child opted out of the sexual content. Pull your kids and homeschool them. That is a great option for those that can do it. And honestly, if I can do it, anyone can. You can create their diploma. They have an easier way of doing schooling that's balanced for them. And honestly, they'll have a life balance that's great for their future. They'll learn critical thinking, and the work is paced for them. The homeschool community continues to grow by leaps and bounds, and we are growing and building every single day.